Hey everyone, I want to welcome you to your first class with me and the wonderful Kira Shuttleworth. And I am so excited to get started with you and to see the work that you guys are going to create. What I am super excited about, probably most of all, is that I have had the honor to work with the majority of you in some capacity, whether we are friends, whether you've been one of my past students, whether I had you as a wee undergrad, or whether we've worked together as colleagues and we're friends now or we're friends prior. I'm just super ecstatic to be able to be with you in this particular setting and to see all of this incredible new work that you're going to generate. And so just to kick us off, I am starting us off with the blues form. And I have to tell you, and I know that this is my habit where I'll often say, and this is going to be really hard, and I don't know if that's helpful or if it's hindering, but either way, I wanted to tell you before I begin talking through the blues, and it's that it's a really incredible form. And I went into it thinking, as I was sort of tweaking the slides and going through my lecture notes and everything, that it was going to be easy to teach. But then I realized that there's so much elasticity to this particular form that it's deceptively simple, but it's actually a lot harder than it looks. So that said, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with the blues. And so I have, as always, my little lecture prepared. And it's just a really beautiful form, you guys. And I'm really delighted to be able to walk you through it. So essentially, I mean, you probably know of the blues as being a musical form, and you've heard it. A lot of the times people do rhythm and blues on the guitar, and I think some of you do play the guitar, so it's kind of like dun 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 dun. The day I was born, dun 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 dun. The doctor slapped me, and it kind of goes through this idea of hard living, hard loving, but there's also a components of resilience to it too, right? And it's got that dun 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 dun. So in other words, the music itself uses a repetition, and also often there's rhymes within the blues too, although it doesn't necessarily have to have that end rhyme, but you'll notice it does usually follow a pattern of a prescribed end rhyme. So let's continue to dive in. It is one of the most popular forms of American poetry. The blues poem stems from the African-American oral tradition and the musical tradition of the blues. And so usually the blues poems were originally spoken. They were communicated in the great African-American oral tradition. And they usually take on themes like struggle, despair, abandonment, and sex. And it often, and this is where it gets a bit tricky, it often, but not necessarily, follows a form in which a statement is made in the first line, and then a variation is given in the second, and then an ironic alternative is declared in the third line. So for those of you who studied pantoums before, or any of the other received forms like the villanelle, think of it this way: with each repetition, it's kind of the way I've encouraged you to do with each repetition of every received form, where you change it. So the day I was born, I said, the day that I was born, it was the day that I thought I was born. So you see what I just did there, and I gave you a terrible example, so forgive me. But I made a statement in the first line, I varied it slightly, and I gave it an ironic alternative. Usually blues poems are in iambic pentameter, and they follow the rhythms of our ordinary speech, which iambic pentameter does. So 10 syllables, and again, tap them out. We speak in iambic pentameter, and you don't need to scan or tap out those rhythms too terribly much, because as I said, the English language, which is more of a rhyme poor language, is going to lend itself organically to this particular form. And several repeated lines can be altered by the words or arrangement. So like I said, the lines can be varied as much or as little as you like. So the day I was born, the doctor slapped me. The day I was born, the doctor, he slapped me. And then he said, the day I was born, the doctor, he slapped me. And then he said, you will never live to be. So anyway, I'm going as along to kind of show you this. So I'm repeating those lines, but I'm also changing them more in each line. So that's another option, is you can either repeat the lines a little and keep that same variation, or a lot. And if a repeated line is changed, you can repeat the sound and the rhyme. And I'm going to go over that in a second. It's really interesting what the different variations of blues poems take on. And I've really tried to condense it as much as possible. There's no fixed number of stanzas, so they can be as long or as short as you want. One form of the blues poem, one stanzaic composition. So usually blues poems are 3 and 4 line stanzas. So they're either tercets or quatrains. And there may be several repetitions of, right here, the A pattern. And all that means is that there's an exact rhyme, and a slant rhyme. Let's say if you're to use a 3-line stanza, that may occur in the same lyric. So for example, the whole lyric could be, dun, 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 dun. I woke up this morning, and I said to myself this morning, I said to myself this morning that I want to sing. I said to myself this morning that I want to, be strung up from up high. So as I'm doing this, I'm showing you how I'm using several repetitions. I believe I used 4 in that one, but you can also use 3, because like I said, we're using 3 or 4 line stanzas with that slant rhyme at the very end. And so notice how I use strung as the off rhyme instead of morning. So in other words, you can use off rhymes, A, and then the 3rd or the 4th rhyme can be a slant. And some writers, like I said, use repeated lines, and that's something I'll talk about in a second. So, but just to talk about the rhyme schemes, you can either do all of the same, or 2 of the same, an A, and then a 3rd, and maybe a 4th that's a slant. Or you can also use the entirely same rhyme for all the stanzas. Okay, so the day I was born, I felt so forlorn, because on that day I felt unadorned. Okay, so, and you can keep going like that using A. Another way you can do it, I hope you guys appreciate my freestyling here. Another way that you can do it is you can also use the same rhyme, but a different one for each stanza. So for example, A for the first, B for the second, and so on and so forth. So it would be, the day I was born, I felt forlorn, because I was unadorned, because they left me alone, and I was bad to the bone, and then my heart turned to stone. So did you see how I used for the first tercet all A end rhymes? And I kind of used some repetition in the lines, but I also disrupted them. And I also used for B, for the B, I changed the rhymes, but in that stanza, they all stick with B. Okay, so for example, here's an example of just like of rhymes that of a repetition where there's an exact rhyme, but also the lines themselves don't change that much. When my heart struck sorrow, the tears come rolling down. When my heart struck sorrow, the tears come rolling down. When my heart struck sorrow, the tears come rolling down. So what some people will do is they'll use a refrain like that in places for added gravity without altering the lines at all. So the African-American writer Ralph Ellison said that although the blues are about struggle and depression, that they're also full of resiliency through one's spirit, through the resilience of facing this hardship. So it's not all doom and gloom. There's also kind of that spiritual component. And some blues poems, and I think this is really fun too, use the 3rd or 4th line of the opening stanza is a refrain for the rest. So does that not remind you a bit? It's a bit like a pantoum or a villanelle. So I'm giving you an example here. And again, you can do this, but these are options. Oh, daughter, daughter, please don't be like me. Oh, daughter, daughter, please don't be like me. Oh, daughter, daughter, please don't be like me, to fall in love with every man you see. So then this fourth line right here is going to be the refrain for everything else. So then maybe the next stanza is, you see, I fell for a man who wasn't like me, or something like that. And then those lines keep going, but then it's, that third or fourth line is, oh, daughter, please don't be like me. Some of the great blues poets are Sterling Brown, James Weldon, Johnson, and Langston Hughes. And here's the title poem of Hughes' first book, The Weary Blues. I changed the word because it's a since outdated word for a Black person, and I can't say that in good faith. And so I changed it to person. But this is an excellent example of the blues form. So now you'll notice that unlike these other poems, he doesn't use the exact same refrain and the exact same lines, but he uses an A, and in this case, a B, and then a C, C, and then a B. So he more or less uses a similar rhyme, but he disrupts it a little bit. Droning a drowsy syncopated tune, rocking back and forth to a mellow croon. I heard a man play down on Lenox Avenue the other night by the pale, dull pallor of an old gas light. He did a lazy sway. So that can be a kind of cool variation too, because by the time your brain it loses that B rhyme, then it comes back and your brain goes, huh? So again, it's not that different from some of the other received forms that we've done. So that, and again, is just another variation of how he chose to do it. This one is an absolutely fantastic example, and I love it. This poem is Natasha Trethewey's Graveyard Blues, and it's great. And you'll notice that with her, she is pretty much a blues purist. And what's really cool is that this poem also doubles as a sonnet. If you took my last class, you'll hear me talking incessantly about it, and I intend to talk incessantly about it in this one too. So notice that for this one though, she doesn't use variations like Hughes, and she doesn't tend to use the exact same lines, but she skews them. So in this particular case, remember what I said, it's 3 or 4 lines, stanzas. There's no pre-prescribed length. And usually what people can do is they either go they either go perfect rhyme, slant rhyme, or B, 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 and then the next stanza has a new rhyme, and so on. Or you can use the exact same rhyme for all of the stanzas. It just really depends. Or you can even do what Hughes did, where he kind of buried one of the rhymes and then came back. And you're using those lines in repetition, but you can vary them. So, and have you noticed, for example, when blues musicians will go, my baby sister, one day she went away. I said, my baby sister, one day she just upped and went away. So you're using this concept of repetition to consistently each time create that emotional intensity by disrupting the line. So let's look at Graveyard Blues. This is a terrific example of the A, B, 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 C, C, C. It rained the whole time we were laying her down. Rained from church to grave when we put her down. So see, she's using the same rhyme, and she's even using the same word there. And that's one of the few places where she does that, but she does it a few times. The suck of mud at our feet was a hollow sound. When the preacher called out, I held up my hand. So see, we went away from the A sound there. When he called for a witness, I raised my hand. So again, the line is varied, the narrative is pushed forward. We moved on to a different rhyme. Death stops the body's work, the soul's a journeyman or a journeyman. So we could even argue for this one that it's a slant rhyme. So it's a B, 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 like lowercase b. The sun came out when I turned to walk away. glared down me as I turned to walk away. So again, we have the same rhyme and the word is being repeated, even though she doesn't always do that. You can. Now back to my mother, leaving her where she lay. New word. The road going home was pocked with holes. That home going road, again, she's altering the line, always full of holes. Same word though. Though we slow down, time's wheel still rolls. New line. I wander now among names of the dead. New rhyme. So I think this would be E. This would be, so she departed from, oh no, it's not. So then we have E, and then this is F and F. I wander now among names of the dead. My mother's name, stone pillow for my head. Beautiful. And like I said, she snuck a sonnet by us too. So it's a sonnet and blues. So like I said, something for you to keep in mind is that it's essentially using those end rhymes, and you can use the repetition as you alter it as many times or as little as you want. But I think what the important thing is that you can use it to kind of push that narrative forward. And if you want, although she doesn't do this, you can use that third or that fourth line as the refrain that comes back. I'm trying to see here. I don't necessarily think that for this particular line, I mean, she repeats lines for sure, but she doesn't have that refrain like, oh, daughter, daughter, don't be like me. So you can certainly also use that refrain and think again like a pantoum. If it's that third or fourth line that you're just, and it's actually, I think a bit structurally easier in that sense to take that third or fourth line and to repeat it throughout. And the other thing, as I said, you can do is even having the same end rhyme entirely throughout the stanzas. So think about the blues, sing the blues. Remember, you're evoking that melancholy, but also that resiliency within this incredible oral tradition. And so for your assignment, you can either pick, if you've done a pantoum and you want to do the blues, go for it. If you want to do a pantoum and you want to go the other way around, go for it. If you want to do both, great. I encourage that. The thing is, if you want to do pantoum blues, that would be crazy and that would be amazing too. What I would suggest you do, however, is you take the poem that you feel you're most excited about to turn into workshop, and that's next Sunday when everything is due, ideally. So it's going to be next Sunday when you turn in your work to everybody by 5 p.m. CST. And then we will meet starting either next Tuesday or next Wednesday, depending on the class that you're in. And I just absolutely cannot wait to work with you. And I hope that you have an absolute ball writing these poems, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.